Once upon a time, there was a boy named Ethan who loved to play the piano. He had big dreams of becoming a world-famous pianist, performing in grand concert halls in front of thousands of people. Every day after school, he would sit in front of his old piano and practice for hours. But no matter how hard he tried, Ethan felt like he wasn't improving fast enough. "I'm not talented enough," he would tell himself after making a mistake during practice. His fingers would stumble over the keys, and frustration would build up inside him. He watched videos of professional pianists online and wondered why they made it look so easy. "Maybe I'm just not cut out for this," he thought. One evening, feeling defeated, Ethan went to his grandfather's house for dinner. His grandfather, Mr. Harris, had been a carpenter for over 40 years, and he noticed that something was bothering Ethan. "Why the long face, son?" Mr. Harris asked as they sat down at the table. "I've been practicing the piano for months, but I'm just not getting better," Ethan sighed. "I'm starting to think I'll never be good enough." Mr. Harris smiled knowingly and stood up, motioning Ethan to follow him to his workshop. Inside, the smell of wood and the sight of unfinished projects filled the room. Mr. Harris picked up a small wooden block and handed it to Ethan. "See this?" Mr. Harris said. "This block of wood will become a beautiful chair one day. But do you know how long it takes to turn a rough piece of wood into something extraordinary?" Ethan shook his head. "It takes patience," Mr. Harris explained. "When I first started as a carpenter, I was terrible. My hands weren't steady and nothing I made was perfect. But with time, I learned that creating something beautiful doesn't happen overnight. Every day I worked a little bit on my skills, shaping the wood, sanding it, polishing it. Eventually, I became a master of my craft. But it didn't happen in days or even months. It took years." Ethan listened closely, realizing what his grandfather was trying to say. "Success is like carving wood," Mr. Harris continued. "It takes time, patience, and consistent effort. Every time you practice the piano, you're carving a little more off that block of wood. You might not notice the changes right away, but with each practice session, you're shaping your talent." Ethan thought about this and decided to approach his piano practice differently. Instead of getting frustrated when he didn't see immediate results, he focused on the small improvements he made every day. He began to enjoy the process, knowing that each note, each mistake, was part of his journey. Weeks turned into months, and slowly, Ethan's fingers moved more fluidly over the keys. The melodies that once seemed impossible to play became easier, and his confidence grew. He still wasn't perfect, but he understood now that mastery didn't come from rushing. It came from patience. 1 year later, Ethan performed at his school's annual talent show. As he sat at the piano in front of a large crowd, his hands moved gracefully across the keys, playing a piece he once thought he'd never master. The audience erupted in applause, but for Ethan, the real victory was knowing that he had learned to be patient with himself. As he bowed to the crowd, he glanced at his grandfather sitting in the front row. Mr. Harris gave him a proud nod, knowing that Ethan had finally understood the lesson he tried to teach him. And so, Ethan's story is a reminder to all of us. Success doesn't come to those who rush. It comes to those who are patient enough to wait and work for it. Just like carving a piece of wood, our dreams take time to shape. But with persistence and patience, they can become something truly beautiful.